Hey guys, it's Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, welcome and thank you for finding us. I hope you're doing well. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you like the balloons. How do you like my production design? I'm in my office right now. It's my lunch break. We had an event a couple weeks ago and we have all these balloons left over. So I just created it. And obviously these are all books. The office I work in publishes books among other things. So I think that's a CD, but most of these are books behind me. But I made a little tower of balloons because I thought it might look nice. So there you go. I hope you enjoy that. If you are not subscribed, then you could subscribe. That would be a huge help. Obviously, only do it if you like the content. This is a Patreon Wicked early release video. That means it's going to be on Patreon months before it goes up on YouTube. And I actually have to apologize to my patrons because I was working on a Patreon exclusive video for this week that I'm not going to be able to get up this week. I have Gorgeous here, the release from 88 Films. I'll be reviewing this on. By the time this video is up on YouTube, I will have already reviewed this release. I'm doing for a Patreon exclusive, I'm doing a cut comparison between the 2-hour Hong Kong cut and the 90-minute international cut. And I had trouble ripping the disc, actually. That was the issue that I ran into. That's usually not an issue for me, but it took like a couple days for me to figure. For whatever reason, my disk drive and the software I use to create the digital files of the movies that I create the clips from that I put into the videos was not working for this release. I don't know what was going on, but I troubleshooted it and I eventually figured it out. But this is an awesome release. And you can see this here. And I'm really, really excited to review this, and I'm really excited to do the cut comparison. And I really like this movie. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like this movie. So apologies to my patrons for not having the Gorgeous cut comparison up. So I thought I would do a fun list that I could do quickly here that hopefully people on Patreon will enjoy. And hopefully people on YouTube will like too. If you want to sign up for Patreon, you do $2 a month, $5 a month. Those are the levels I have. You can sign up for different amounts, more than that. And I do exclusive content in there, wicked early releases and other stuff like that. So the list is my top 10 favorite action stars of all time. Not exclusive to Hong Kong, but from everywhere of all time. The reason I'm doing this list is I started a podcast recently with Mike. So if you don't know who Mike is the silent partner in this channel. So Mike does all the editing, the audio correcting. When we film in the studio, Mike does all the green screen, the camera setup, the lighting, everything. Mike and I started a podcast called Movie of the Week. It's very simple. We talk about one movie every week and we alternate picks. So one week I pick, one week Mike picks, and we try to pick movies the other person is maybe not super familiar with or hasn't seen before or hasn't seen in a long time that we really love. And then we just talk about them. And it's been really, really fun to do. We've recorded 11 episodes. We're going to start posting them very soon. So, but hopefully by the time this video is on YouTube, we will already be posting episodes of the podcast. But we recorded one this week, a couple days ago, where we started just talking about favorite action stars. And I thought that might be a really cool thing to do for Patreon and then also for YouTube, because a lot of them are from Hong Kong on my list. So let's just dive right into this. At number 10, I have a tie, actually, so I'm cheating already. I'm a big cheater on lists. I had 3 people I wanted to put at number 10, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it. So I have a tie between 2 of them, and then I'll mention the other one later on in this video. The 2 are Van Damme and Seagal. So this is a really tricky question for me. Who's better? Because I think I much prefer Van Damme as a star, as an actor, as a martial artist, as an entertainer. The way that he kind of his martial arts ability, I think, is better on camera. It's more interesting to look at. He's more entertaining. He's a better actor. He's got a cheeky sense of humor. Like, I really like Van Damme as a performer. I think I like Seagal's movies better. Like, if you were to make a list of both of their movies side by side, Seagal had a run from like 88 to 97 or so that was just ridiculous. He was in so many good movies, like Above the Law, Out for Justice, Under Siege 2, Fire Down Below, On Deadly Ground. Glimmerman was in that era. Executive Decision, which again is a Kurt Russell movie, but Seagal is in it. Marked for Death. There's one other one from that era that I know I'm forgetting, but there's so many good movies in that era, and I think I like those movies more than I like the Van Damme movies, even though, I mean, I love Double Impact. I love Hard Target. And I would say that probably Van Damme's best movies, Hard Target, Double Impact, are really my favorite Van Damme movies. And I also really like Lionheart. I like Time Cop, obviously Bloodsport. But, and I think I would pick Van Damme's best movies as better than Seagal's best movies, but Seagal was way more consistent and I think had a much more impressive run. So it was really hard for me to pick, and I just put them as a tie at number 10. At number 9, straight out of Australia, Mel Gibson. I'm a huge Lethal Weapon fan. If you watch this channel, you know that I'm a huge Lethal Weapon fan, and I just love Mel Gibson. I love his partnership with Danny Glover. I love his like manic energy, his cheeky sense of humor, his silliness, his intensity, the physicality that he brings to his performances, and he's in the Mad Max movies, which are freaking awesome. Bird on a Wire is a movie I loved as a kid. Like, I loved that movie as a kid. I really did. I haven't seen that movie in like 30 years, so I really need to watch that again. It's Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn, but I like loved that movie as a kid. And Mel Gibson has just been like a big part of my life since I was a kid. Because, like I said, Bird on a Wire, I first saw Lethal Weapon 3 when I was like maybe 8 or 9 when that movie first came out on home video, like on VHS. And I just fell in love with that series. And I love those movies. I've seen them all several times. And I really I love him as an actor, and I love him as a performer in action films because he really does bring physicality to it, like the fighting in the Lethal Weapon movies. And I just think he's great. He's a great screen presence. I love his energy, his sense of humor, everything. So I had to put Mel Gibson on there. That's number 9 on my list of my favorite action stars. There's 10, by the way, 10 favorite action stars. At number 8, so I struggled a little bit with where to put Mel Gibson and this next person, because I feel like I might like Mel Gibson a little bit more for personal taste. But the next person is Harrison frickin' Ford, who is Han Solo, who is Indiana Jones, who is Jack Ryan, who is an Air Force One. Like, he's like, I was thinking earlier as I was making this list, like Harrison Ford is inseparable from my love of movies and my love of pop culture and my cultural experience growing up as someone who was born in the early 80s, who grew up watching all of those movies throughout the 80s and 90s. Like, it's impossible for me to make this list and be honest about it and not put Harrison Ford on it. I don't watch the Star Wars movies a lot as an adult, but as a kid, especially like middle school age, I was like a big nerd. I was super into comics and sci-fi and fantasy, and I would read like the Dragon Slayer books, and I played Magic and like all that stuff. And I was a huge Star Wars fan, and I would watch the original trilogy like over and over again. And then, I mean, Indiana Jones, when I was young, we had Temple of Doom on VHS. That was like one of the few VHS movies we had when I was very young, and my brother and I would watch that movie a lot. And he's just like I said, he's an inseparable part of my pop culture experience. He's been in so many amazing movies, and like I could say Star Wars, whatever, it's sci-fi, it's not really action. Indiana Jones, those are adventure movies, they're not really action movies, but I feel like he's inseparable from that era in which action became this huge force in popular culture, action cinema, and was such a big influence on the lives of a lot of people who were in love with those movies, such as myself. So I couldn't not put Harrison Ford on this list. It was really just kind of impossible for me. And I gave him the edge over Mel Gibson really just because of his iconic stature and, like I said, his inseparable nature from my cultural experience. At number 7, Tony Jaa. If I were making a martial arts star list, Tony Jaa I think would be closer to the top. I freaking love Tony Jaa. Like, when I first saw The Protector, I was like stunned. I saw that movie in theaters. I had not seen Ong Bak at that point, and I was stunned by that movie. I was like, this guy is the best thing since Jackie Chan. Like, this guy is incredible and ridiculous and amazing, and I want to see everything he's ever done. Like, I became legitimately obsessed with him, and I went and saw Ong Bak immediately, and I've been a huge Tony Jaa fan ever since. So why is he so low? The reason really is quantity of quality. I would say that Tony Jaa has been in 3 genuinely great films: Ong Bak, The Protector, and SPL 2, Killzone 2. I am a huge fan of Killzone 2, and I know that not everyone is, but I'm a huge fan of that movie. And I think Tony Jaa is incredible in that film. And a lot of the other stuff he's been in, which I've seen, like Ong Bak 2, Ong Bak 3, Skin Trade with Dolph Lundgren, and Michael Jai White is also in that film. I really, really enjoy Triple Threat with the huge cast. Another controversial film. I know not everyone likes that movie. I really like that movie. But I wouldn't say that any of those films are like classic movies. They're really, really fun. The Protector 2 kind of sucks. I think we all can agree upon that, right? But like the Ong Bak sequels are good movies. They're entertaining. They've got some eye-popping stunts and stuff. But I really think those 3 are like his elite tier all-time great classic action/martial arts films. And so I have them a little bit lower on this list because of that. But like I said, if I were doing purely martial arts stars based on my love of their martial arts ability, their charisma on screen and stuff, this is action stars is a little bit different. Tony Jaa would be right up near the top. So that's number 7 on my list of my 10 favorite action stars. At number 6, starting to get to Hong Kong, Michelle Yeoh. Come on. I mean, she's incredible. And that run that she had with Yes, Madam, and then Royal Warriors, Magnificent Warriors, Police Story slash Super Police Story 3 slash Super Cop, excuse me, and then Super Cop 2 slash Project S. And she's been in amazing stuff since then, obviously, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I still haven't seen. I know, I'm sorry, but I mean, that run that she had was just incredible, and her charisma. And one of the things I love about Michelle Yeoh in those early Hong Kong action movies she's in is that she seems like really amiable and funny and fun and silly, but then she's just beating the crap out of everyone and doing these insane stunts and fighting. And she's just amazing. Like, she's amazing. And I'm a huge, huge fan of Michelle Yeoh. I love her movies. I had to put her on this list. Watching Royal Warriors and Magnificent Warriors within like the same week or two was just such a joyful experience for me. They're just such great movies. And she's so, so good in them. She has such presence. She's so physical. She's so funny. She's such a good actor. I mean, I've said this before on this channel at least twice, and I can say it again. I think her performance in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is like an all-time great performance because she does all the physical stuff at the highest tier, and she's acting at the highest level. And I think there are very few performances you can point to in the history of cinema where someone is that good as a physical performer, martial arts and stunts and stuff, while also being in the elite tier of actors. That performance is transcendent and incredible. Martial arts movie, not an action movie, but those early action movies she's in, again, like I said, Yes, Madam, Royal Warriors, Magnificent Warriors, Super Cop, and Super Cop 2 slash Project S, just incredible. And I had to put her on here. She's amazing. I love her presence, her humor, her physical ability. She's just a fantastic actor. At number 5, now we're getting into the top 5, I should say. Should we ring a bell? Ding, 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 ding. Should we ring a balloon? At number 5. Oh my. Imagine if they started the stock market with someone tapping a pen on a balloon instead of ringing a bell. I'm worried my balloon tower is going to topple. Let me just fix that. No. Oh, is it coming down? No. Okay. At number 5 on my list of my 10 favorite action stars of all time, Sly Stallone. Because how can you not have Sylvester Stallone on a list like this? It's interesting to me that previous to, like I said, I was recording this podcast with Mike and I was thinking about my favorite action stars. Previous to that discussion, and we were Googling, their credits and stuff like that, I thought of Stallone more as like First Blood was an early Stallone movie that I saw when I was a kid. It's a thriller. It's not an action movie. The Rocky movies. So if you don't know my personal history and everything, when I was a kid, I lived outside of Philadelphia. So the Rocky movies were on TV all the time. I've seen all of the Rocky movies many times. They're not action movies, right? They're like boxing movies and they're dramas and whatever. And so in my head, I was thinking I think Stallone is a genius as a producer and as a writer. He has such an amazing understanding of what audiences want. And the proof of that is the fact that the guy has been making fucking movies for 50 years or whatever, right? 45 years. And audiences keep coming to see them because he knows what people want and he knows how to do it in such a way that it's a good movie and not just serving crap to the masses, right? That's, I think, the genius of Sylvester Stallone. And I think his greatest strength, as much as I love him as an actor and a performer, his greatest strength is his writing and producing, I think. And his knowledge and understanding of what audiences want. But then, as I said, I was recording this podcast with Mike and we started looking at their credits and it's like Rambo 2, pure action movie. Rambo 3, pure action movie. Rambo 4, kind of like a war action movie. Demolition Man. I freaking love Demolition Man. I saw that in theaters in 1993. I freaking loved it. I've loved it ever since. I bought the Blu-ray not too long ago. I rewatched it. It's still amazing. He's been in a lot of really good action movies, even though I primarily think of him as starring in thrillers. And even movies like Cobra is kind of like a thriller slasher type of movie, right? But he does everything. The Expendables movies obviously are pure action. He does everything and he does it all well. So I couldn't leave Sylvester Stallone off my list, and I had to put him near the top, and I put him at number 5. At number 4, Sammo freaking Hung. Sammo, again, like Sly Stallone, Sammo was hard for me to assess as an action star because he's so great as a writer, a director, and a producer. He's also an incredible comedian as both a performer and a writer, director, and producer. And yet, you have Eastern Condors and all these incredible other action films in which Sammo is the star. And Sammo, I also think, was really, really important in the history of action cinema, along with Jackie Chan in bringing martial arts and that style of fighting and stunts into a contemporary setting. Because Jackie did that in 1985 with Police Story, right? Sammo did that previous to that in Winners and Sinners a little bit, right? It's a contemporary film with some great fights and stunts, even though it's mostly a comedy. And Wheels on Meals, which is a contemporary set film with some great fights and stunts set in an urban environment, both of those films. And then with Police Story and Jackie, obviously the whole thing just blew up. But the notion of taking martial arts and that style of stunt performing and putting it in a contemporary urban setting with gunfighting in it and making a modern movie for modern audiences using the language of Peking opera and fighting and stunts and stuff like that is so essential to our modern understanding of action. Now, again, I know this is about action stars, and that's why Sammo was hard for me to assess, because a lot of his genius is as a writer and a producer and a director, but he's starred in so many great, amazing action films, and I love his presence so much on the screen that I couldn't not put him on this list, and I have him at number 4. Before I get into the top 5, I want to do 2 things. I want to give you my honorable mentions, and I want to talk about people who I did not consider. Excuse me, and the specific reasons I did not consider them. Let's talk about that first. I only considered people who star in what I really think of as action films for this list. So, Bruce Lee, for instance, was not really ever in an action film. He was in martial arts movies. Those are different things to me. And because of that, I don't think Bruce Lee belongs on this list. There's no denying that Bruce Lee is the most important martial arts movie star of all time. And I think a lot of people would say he's absolutely the best. I think that's maybe a generational thing, depending on when you grew up and who you were watching. But I think a lot of people would say he's absolutely the best and indisputably the most important. But he wasn't really ever in action movies, so I did not include him in the list, and I didn't really even consider him. 2 Japanese actors, Toshiro Mifune and Tatsuya Nakadai. And there's a whole generation of Japanese actors along with them who could, theoretically be considered for a list like this, but I don't consider the films they starred in to be action films. Mifune was in Seven Samurai, right? Yojimbo, Sanjuro. He's in some of the best violent movies ever made. Stray Dog, The Bad Sleep Well, these are all Kurosawa films I'm listing, but he's in the Masashi Miyamoto trilogy, I believe. And I think is he in Samurai Rebellion, if I'm not mistaken? He's in Samurai Assassin. I didn't consider him or Tatsuya Nakadai, who's in Harakiri, which I think is one of the great masterpieces of Japanese cinema. He's in Ran. He's in some of the same movies that Mifune is in, like Yojimbo, Sanjuro. He's in Kagemusha. Those aren't really action movies to me. They're Chambara, Jidaigeki. Kagemusha, I think you could argue, is kind of like a period piece war film. Ran, kind of also like a Jidaigeki war film. And so I didn't consider either one of them, even though they are incredible actors and performers and icons of the screen and some of the greatest actors and violent movie performers ever, but I don't consider those to be action films in the contemporary sense of that word. I didn't consider Clint Eastwood because I feel like he's in westerns, he's in thrillers, he's not really in like contemporary style action films. And Sean Connery, who is, James frickin' Bond, right? But like I think of the Bond movies as kind of espionage films / proto action films, but I don't think the Connery Bond films really fit what I define as modern, contemporary, whatever, action films. So I didn't consider any of those people, even though they are incredible and they were in violent movies that had action set pieces in them. Honorable mentions. So I said I was considering 3 people for number 10. The other person who I was considering for number 10, in addition to Van Damme and Seagal, was Wesley Snipes. I freaking love Wesley Snipes. I watched movies like Demolition Man and Major League and White Men Can't Jump and what was the other Wesley Snipes movie? Passenger 57, like over and over again as a kid. And like The Art of War is a really great action movie. The Blade movies are so awesome and so much fun. So why is Wesley Snipes not on this list? Because I did really seriously consider putting Van Damme and Seagal as honorable mentions and putting Wesley Snipes at number 10. The reason is, as I was thinking about Wesley Snipes, I started to realize that my love of Wesley Snipes is as it's of him as an actor. I love him in comedies as much as I love him in action movies. I love him in thrillers like Rising Sun as much as I love him in action movies. Like I would watch Wesley Snipes kind of do anything. It doesn't have to be an action movie, and I'm not attracted to him specifically because of the action set pieces, right? Like I only watch Van Damme movies, I only watch Seagal movies to watch the action, to watch them beat the shit out of each other, to watch the gunfights, and like the punching and the kicking and all that stuff, right? Wesley Snipes in Major League, that's an amazing performance. He's hysterical in that film. And same thing as White Man Can't Jump, right? So it's like I'm not watching Wesley Snipes movies and I don't love him as a performer because of action, even though like Simon Phoenix is one of the greatest movie villains of the 90s and that performance is freaking incredible and iconic. Scott Adkins I have on here as another honorable mention. I love Scott Adkins. Again, he does a lot of martial arts movies, but he also does movies like Savage Dog and like The Debt Collector, those two films, and I think it's called Debt Collector and Debt Collectors, right? Are those the names of those two films, I believe? And like Triple Threat, that are kind of like these action / martial arts, like they're action movies, I would say, with martial arts in them. They're kind of like these hybrid in-between type of films. That have elements of drama and thriller in them too. And so anyway, like Close Range, I think is very much an action film that just happens to have all this amazing fighting because Scott Adkins is in the film. And I love his presence. I love his fighting is just incredible. I mean, I think he's the best. I mean, obviously there's Iko Uwais too, and the team of people from The Raid and The Raid 2. But, you know, I think Scott Adkins is one of like the top 3 to 5, probably top 3 martial artist / actors to emerge in cinema in like the last 20 years. And as in the English speaking world, I think he's undoubtedly number 1. So I had to put Scott Adkins on here. Love Scott Adkins. Bruce Willis. I mean, again, like as I said with Harrison Ford, like I can't separate my cultural experience from Bruce Willis. And one of the reasons I didn't put him in the top 10 is that I don't think of Die Hard as an action movie. It's really like a thriller. And the same for Die Hard 2. Die Hard 3, really, I mean, that really is more of a thriller too. It's not until Die Hard 4 that it becomes like pure action. Same with The Last Boy Scout. It's really more of a thriller. I love Bruce Willis as an actor. I think he's a really, really good actor. The way that he's so intense, but he's soft-spoken, and that he has this look to him like he's ready to just rip your head off, but he can also be very like compassionate and likable and endearing. I think he's a very good actor. And I really like Bruce Willis as an actor, but when I think of like pure action cinema, I don't really think of him. I think of him as like a movie star and an actor who's in like a lot of action adjacent kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, I just don't really think of those movies as action movies. And I know it's like splitting hairs, and, you know, you could argue that the Lethal Weapon movies are really thrillers and not action movies, but I think of Mel Gibson as an action star. I don't know why. It's just my subjective experience, and I don't really think of Mel Gibson as an action star. I put Andy Lau on here too, just because Andy Lau's in some really freaking incredible movies like Running Out of Time and Infertile Affairs. And what was the other one I was just thinking of? A Time for Killing and Romance and Gun and Rose, which are both movies that I've reviewed on the channel. And Full Time Killer. All those movies are like, again, borderline thrillers, but they're heroic bloodshed type of stuff, Rich and Famous, Tragic Hero. Like, Andy Lau's great, and I love Andy Lau. And so honorable mention to Andy Lau. So let's get into the top 3. It's probably really freaking obvious. If you watch this channel, if you know what I like, or if you just know action movies, it's like blindingly obvious who the top 3 are going to be. At number 3, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because how could you not put him on your list? Because he's the best. I was a huge, huge Arnold fan as a kid. Terminator 2 is one of the most important movies in my life. And I saw it when it first came out on VHS. And I was obsessed with it, and I loved Arnold. Kindergarten Cop was a really big movie for me. There was one summer where I was being babysat by this woman in Philadelphia. My mom worked in Philadelphia, so my mom would take me into the city, drop me off at the babysitter's apartment, and my mom would go to work. And the babysitter lived across the street from a video store. So after lunch, after I had like tired her out by being insane all morning, she'd be like, let's just go rent a movie. And we rented Kindergarten Cop one day. And I asked her to keep it for like several subsequent days, and I just watched that movie over and over again. I love that movie. I just rewatched it like a couple months ago, and it's really good. I really love that movie. But then, you know, there's the first Terminator is an incredible movie. I saw The Last Action Hero in theaters when I was a kid, and I loved that movie as a kid. And I mean, you know, there's Raw Deal, there's Commando. Even Eraser is a really freaking good movie, and he was just such a huge presence in that era. Conan the Barbarian is a freaking great movie. I love that movie. Conan the Destroyer. Admittedly, I haven't seen Conan the Destroyer in 20 years, but the last time I watched it, I was like, this is not a very good movie. I should revisit it before I'm too mean to it. But I mean, I feel like this one doesn't even need an explanation. It's Arnold freaking Schwarzenegger, right? Like, what else do you have to say? Like, that whole era in action movies in the 80s, I just dropped my notebook, in the United States happened because of Arnold Schwarzenegger, because of the huge success of those films. Like, the entire model of action stars in that era was based on Arnold, this hulking guy with these huge freaking muscles. Predator. I can't believe I didn't mention Predator, right? This huge guy at Red Heat with these huge freaking muscles, and like Dolph Lundgren, obviously it's like, okay, here's another guy who could be like an Arnold type Van Damme, shorter, huge muscles, physical ability to perform. Like, I mean, Stallone was around before Schwarzenegger, and you could say that he was kind of like the proto action hero, but Schwarzenegger really is like the one, you know what I mean? So the top two, again, no one is going to be surprised by this at all. At number two, I have Chow Yun-fat, because Chow Yun-fat is one of the greatest actors ever. He's one of the greatest movie stars ever, and he's one of the greatest action stars ever. Mark Gore is one of the greatest action movie characters of all time. Again, you could argue that A Better Tomorrow is a thriller and not an action movie. Let's not split hairs on this one. Let's just all say Chow Yun-fat he's just amazing. Like, the gunplay movies, he's an incredible actor too. He's like a really incredible actor. If you watch movies like Story of Wu Viet, All About All Along, and Autumn's Tale, 1941, is that the name of that movie? Hong Kong 1941, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But like, that run of action movies he had, I mean, just the John Woo stuff, A Better Tomorrow 2, Killer, Hard Boiled, he was in Once a Thief. And then, Tragic Hero, Rich and Famous, Tiger on Beat, and there's so many of them that I'm like, City War, Wild Search, City on Fire, Prison on Fire. And again, like, they're not all action movies. Some of them are thrillers, and like City on Fire is very much a thriller. Wild Search is very much a thriller. But I mean, Hard Boiled, I would argue, is the greatest gunplay action film of all time, and he is the center of that movie. He is Tequila. Like, he's got this incredible charisma, this incredible likability. He can be really ferocious. He's a really physical performer. He's a very tall guy. He's like a big presence, and he has a very likable nature. He's very versatile as an actor, but when he gets angry, that face when he gets angry, and I mean, his performance in A Better Tomorrow is just freaking incredible. And like, the way he goes from this like totally carefree, on top of the world, badass, going around double fisting pistols, shooting people guy, to this completely broken person who then, has a chance to redeem himself, and does, in like really freaking amazing fashion. And just, he's just incredible. He carries the entire emotional arc of that film, and of multiple films, of The Killer, of Tony Leung is phenomenal in Hard Boiled, but I think Chow Yun-fat really is the backbone of that film. And a lot of his films, I would argue, are more emotional and more emotionally intense than films from peers of his and other action stars, because of the way that he carries the emotional arc of the character. I just think he's such an incredible actor and such an incredible presence in those films. We're almost at 30 minutes on this video. I really got to get a move on. I mean, number one, you know who it is. Say it with me. We're going to say it on three. 1, 2, 3. Jackie Chan. He's the greatest action star of all time, and there's no question about that. There's no doubt in my mind. I didn't have to think at all about anything while I was making this list. It's just true. What do you even need to say about Jackie Chan? He is an incredible presence on screen. He can do drama. He can do comedy. He's very funny. He's very likable. He can be a dick sometimes. He's good at playing kind of aloof and arrogant characters, but then characters who have changes of heart. Again, as with Chow Yun-fat, like I said, he's good at carrying an emotional arc. Later in his career, he kind of just played himself, but he did that really, really well too. The Jackie persona is just very likable. His physical ability does not even need to be mentioned. The way that he revolutionized action cinema with the style of choreography that he did, and the way that he kept one-upping himself with the stunts, the way that he made a movie like Police Story and basically revolutionized action cinema by making a contemporary action sort of comedy, martial arts stunt film with likable, relatable, everyday characters. I mean, action cinema is not what it is without Jackie Chan. As a performer, as a stunt performer, as a fight choreographer, as a stunt choreographer, as a director, as a writer, as a producer, as a thinker, as an innovative and creative mind, modern action cinema is not what it is. Like, I'm repeating myself now, but without Jackie Chan. And he's been in so many ridiculous, incredible 10-star movies. Like, I still haven't made my list of my favorite Jackie Chan movies yet because it is so freaking hard. I can't get the list below 12, and realistically, I can't get it below 15 without cutting stuff out that I really love. It's been so hard for me to make that list because he is just the best, and I don't think there's any disputing that. And I could see if you don't like Hong Kong cinema, you would say Arnold Schwarzenegger, but for me, I really don't think you could argue against globally, culturally, cinematically, no individual action star or even movie star, arguably, well, maybe not, because you have people like John Wayne and stuff, but ever has had that big of an impact on a type of filmmaking. So my name is Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. I thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments who your favorite action stars are and what you thought about this video. What do you think about my reasoning? If I should make a list of my favorite martial arts stars and all that stuff. And also a huge shout out to my patrons. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get my cut comparison video on Gorgeous out this week, but it is coming next week. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.